Yo, what's going on, guys? It's Brev. Welcome to another MLB The Show 20 video. In this one, I wanted to talk about one of my favorite additions to MLB The Show 20, which is prestige cards, and kind of give my opinion and thoughts and ideas on how this system can be improved in MLB The Show 21 and in the future. If you guys are new to the channel, please subscribe, drop a like on the video. That helps me out a ton. Don't forget to follow me on Twitch and Twitter. That is above my head. So I absolutely loved prestige cards this year. I currently have 64 of them. I'll probably end up above 70 before the game cycle is over. I just thought the system was super cool, giving us something to work towards as we play online. I really hope they keep this in the game and expand on it in the future, and I think that they will. So just starting off with some quality of life stuff that I think can be improved. I think we can all agree that this menu is really hard to navigate and understand. It is sorted in a way, but it's sorted in a super weird way that might be hard to pick up on if you haven't been playing during the entire year. So I'd really like to see them kind of sort this. Like when you click on prestige programs, you can sort by how they're obtained. So like inning bosses, you can sort by position, by team. Stuff like that would make it a lot easier. If they had like sub menus instead of just this one big clump of players that are in a really arbitrary order, I think that would help improve this experience a lot, just kind of navigating these menus. Another quality of life thing that I think would be super cool, if you guys notice on the player cards, there's nothing that L2 and R2 do right now in MLB The Show 20. I think it would be really cool if you could tab between non-prestige cards and prestige cards using L2 and R2. I'm on prestige Kershaw. I can hit L2 and go back to regular Kershaw. So it would be really easy to navigate between non-prestige cards and prestige cards, and you could even put the location of how the prestige card is acquired, and you could also put the missions for the stats that are required if there's an online grind. So I think that would be super cool if they could just add it to the card and be able to let you flip between non-prestige and prestige in that fashion. So in regards to the prestige system itself, I think it had 3 core issues. And when I say issues, I don't think the prestige stuff was bad by any means. I just think these are downsides to the way the system is set up right now. Those are the abundance of cards, the availability of cards, and the fact that stat upgrades are binary, meaning you either have them or you don't until you've completed the entire prestige program. In regards to abundance, I just think it's clear that there were not enough cards in the game that were able to be prestige this year. If they could add the ability to prestige basically anyone in the game, I think that would be amazing. Imagine if you could prestige this Willie Mays card. That would have been so cool. Obviously, top priority would be World Series and BR rewards. I think those should be prestigiable for sure next year. I think additionally, if the card is a reward for a collection, I think that card should be prestigiable as well. Imagine being able to prestige this Dylan Carlson or this Mackenzie Gore within the first month of the game cycle. Obviously, no one would be using this guy's prestige card now, but in the beginning, it could be really cool and something to grind for in the beginning of the game cycle. There's just no reason, in my opinion, for cards like this Corey Seager and also Babe Ruth that are part of really long offline grinds, and they're just not prestigiable at the end of it. Jackie Robinson is another one that comes to mind. I would love to see these big collection and program rewards all be prestigiable next year. As far as availability, obviously I think cards should be able to be prestiged offline. Basically, the core way to prestige cards this year was by completing stats in online games. The offline community has been wanting prestigiable cards offline, and I think that would be a good addition to the game in general. But it would be really important to kind of relegate those stats in a way that wouldn't incentivize people to just play the computer on rookie all day to get their prestige cards, because that is exactly what happened in MLB 18 with the Immortal grind, and it wasn't fun for anybody. So for prestigiable cards offline, if they're gonna do stats, I think they need to be 2x, 3x at least. Some pitchers maybe even 5x. It's just way too easy to load into a computer game against the Orioles on rookie and strike out 22 guys in one game. And I don't have a problem with people grinding their prestiges that way. The time investment just needs to be comparable to playing online and not better than playing online, because if you're making people that would have been playing online do their prestige grinds offline, then that's really detrimental to the online vibe of prestige cards and overall the gameplay experience in general I cannot stress enough that if they're gonna let us prestige cards offline, it needs to be a bigger grind than it would be to grind them online, just to de-incentivize people from grinding all their prestige cards offline. Could be really bad for the game if we end up in a game state where people are just playing the computer on rookie all day again. One thing I would absolutely love to see is cards that are prestigeable, or prestige cards that are obtainable in ways other than grinding online, so for like completing offline goals. So as far as I know, in MLB The Show 20, these 5 cards in the Prestige XP reward path were the only prestige cards not tied to an online stat grind. I would absolutely love to see more of this next year. Prestige cards that are obtained in other ways other than just grinding stats online. The absolute best example of this would be the extreme rewards. It was such a letdown to get all 3 of the extreme rewards, complete that whole program, which took like 16 hours. Getting these cards that are prestigeable, but they came out halfway through the game cycle and they have some of the craziest stat grinds in the game. I don't see any reason why the extreme rewards couldn't have just been the prestige versions of the card in general, and you could have added the non-prestige versions somewhere along the way while completing the program. So instead of a Ducks on the Pond pack here, we could have had non-prestige Christian Yelich, and then where Christian Yelich is, we could have had prestige Christian Yelich. This extreme stuff was such a grind that it would have been awesome to just get the prestige cards right away, since you're already grinding like crazy anyway, instead of attaching absurd stat requirements to these cards when they already took so much time to acquire in the first place. Adding a prestige Lou Gehrig to the end of this instead of a regular Lou Gehrig, and adding regular Lou Gehrig on earlier in the program would have been so much nicer to incentivize people to complete this grind. And I would love to see more stuff next year that allow people to get prestige cards without just acquiring the card, collecting the card, grinding stats online, and following that formula start to finish. And one final thing on the topic of the availability of these prestige cards, a change I would love to see next year would be for the earlier released prestigeable cards to have lower stat grinds to make them more accessible. They get phased out very quickly as the power creep starts to happen, as overalls go up in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th months of the game cycle. This Todd Helton grind was crazy. He was one of the first prestigeable cards. It took me 365 plate appearances to prestige this card. Granted, I didn't hit the best, only 322, but that is a lot of plate appearances for a card that only goes up to a 94, and for a card that was kind of phased out by like the 3rd month of the game cycle. So I would really like to see them tone down the stat requirements for early release cards. If Todd Helton only required something like 50 hits, 30 extra base hits, stuff like that, that would be a lot more enjoyable, and it would incentivize people to kind of grind these cards earlier instead of not caring about prestiges early in the year because the stat grinds are insane and there's going to be a better card that comes out by the time you finish the grind. The best example of this being an issue for me this year that I can remember is this Hanley Ramirez card. He was a 2nd inning boss reward, and I was super excited to grind his prestige. As you can see, I logged 311 plate appearances with him, hit much better than Helton, 373. But right around the time that I had completed the Hanley Ramirez prestige, they dropped this Future Stars Carter Keyboom card, who is basically the same thing as Ramirez but just slightly better, and he was in a headliner, so it felt really bad spending all this time grinding for prestige Hanley Ramirez when I could have just waited for this Carter Keyboom and bought him for like 100,000 stubs when he came out. So if Hanley Ramirez stats that were required were like halved, if you only needed 60 hits instead of 120 or whatever it is for him, would be much better for prestige cards early in the game cycle. Alright, let's talk about the 3rd issue, which is that stat upgrades were binary and they were only available to certain cards, obviously. So one of the ideas I have that they could use to kind of fix this issue would be to add prestige tokens in the game. So this prestige token would be able to be used on any card, so you would allow yourself to give a +3 to any card in the game that you wanted. Now I don't know if this would be able to be removed or if it'd be a one-time thing and that would be it. But it would be super cool. So something like this Luis Robert card, who is 3 fielding away from being a diamond fielding center fielder on launch day. This card with 90 fielding, 95 speed would have been absolutely amazing early in the game cycle, and we just didn't have it because he wasn't prestigeable. So if you could just like slap a prestige token on a card like this because you wanted a defensive center fielder early on. I think that would be super cool, would help with the issue of not being able to prestige many cards in the game as well. They could attach prestige tokens to popular online accomplishments, like you could get a prestige token for making World Series, and that would allow you to slap a prestige on any card that you want. Same with going 12-0 in Battle Royale, that could reward you with a prestige token as well. And I understand that this system is pretty complicated and probably would be super difficult to implement, but I just thought it was a cool idea. And obviously, ideally, you would not allow prestige tokens to be used on cards that have prestige eligibility in other fashions, such as stat grinds. It just would have been super cool, like the first ranked seasons this year, to be like, hey, I made World Series, not only do I get to take Adley Rutschman prospect card and have a new catcher, but now my Luis Robert card is prestiged as well. Now he has diamond defense and 95 speed, would just add another element. Obviously, you would have to make prestige tokens available in other ways other than the really competitive ways that I mentioned. So obviously, I don't think only prestige tokens should be available as World Series or BR rewards. Those were just the first things that I thought of. They could be cumulative event rewards and stuff like that as well. And the final thing I want to talk about in regards to the binary state of prestige cards is adding more levels and more dynamism to the prestige grind. So as of right now, as I've said multiple times in this video, you either have the prestige or you don't. As you guys can see at where I'm with Ty Cobb, I've completed everything except 7 hits. But guess what? My Ty Cobb still doesn't have +3 to any of his stats. Even when I end up with 123 hits, he's still going to be a regular Ty Cobb until I get that 124th hit. So I would love to see them add levels. I would like to see like maybe 5 levels of prestige, and I guess this is really like my overarching like solution for everything that I think would be super cool. So add 5 levels to the prestige, make maybe the first and second level very easy online stat grinds or very manageable offline stat grinds, and have them be +1s instead of +3s. So someone like Ty Cobb would benefit from this system immensely, because technically if you wanted to, all you would have to do is the first stage of the prestige program. Because he's at 89 fielding, you need 90 fielding for diamond defense and center field. So if the first stage of the prestige to get the +1s across the board instead of the +3s was like 20 hits, you could just knock that out. Then you could just rock with like stage 1 prestige Ty Cobb and have diamond defense right away. Obviously, you already don't get plus contact or plus speed with Ty Cobb because they're already maxed out. So you could just rock with the +1 fielding, and then it wouldn't feel as bad when you did this huge grind for Ty Cobb to get +3 and everything, but a lot of his core attributes weren't actually upgraded because they're already maxed out. So ideally in this system, you would have stages 1 through 5 for the prestige programs, and for each stage that you hit, you would get that amount of upgrade. So if you went all the way to stage 5 prestige, and obviously you could color code these differently as well, you would end up with +5 to every attribute instead of +3 that it is now, and you'd be able to work your way up along the way. So you'd be able to use the +2 Bryce Harper while you're grinding for the +3, you'd be able to use the +3 while you're grinding for the +4, etc. Obviously, if they went as far as +5 upgrades, they would have to be crazy stat grinds. So what I'm really looking at here, like with Bryce Harper, 86 hits, that would be like a stage 3 situation. And then if you wanted to take Bryce Harper to stage 5, it would be something like 200 hits or some crazy grind after that. That would also allow you to really differentiate yourself with your favorite cards, just having the most extreme prestige version of your favorite player. And for someone like Bryce Harper, this would actually be huge, because if he was able to get +5s, he would end up with 80 fielding in right field and have gold fielding instead of center. So I think overarching in general, I think that would be awesome to be able to do it in chunks at +1, +2, +3, +4, +5, and be able to use those cards as you go along. And then you could have the decision to either stick with a card for a very long time or only do a very short grind for a very minor stat upgrade. Alright, well I think that's about everything I wanted to cover in this video. Let me know down in the comment section below if you have any ideas or criticisms of the prestige program and how they can be improved in the next iteration of the game. I greatly appreciate you guys watching all the way to the end. Thanks so much for your support this year. I'll see you guys next time. Peace.